Welcome back to DS Trucks. In today's video, I'm going to talk about all the cons of driving an F450. Now, there's tons of videos of all the pros. Obviously, the wide track front end, the ability to turn a lot sharper than an F350 dually or an F250 for that matter. The bigger brakes, the 430 gear ratio in the rear. Things like that, all the pros, they're always talked about with the F450. But if you're in the market for one of these trucks and you're kind of on the fence, I actually want to talk about the cons of driving this particular branch or this particular model of a Super Duty, the F450 version of a Super Duty. Now, number one con with the F450 is the looks. Now, the truck does look great and it does get a lot of positive attention, but if you are daily driving a truck like this, it is going to be quite unique for your area. There's not a whole bunch of these on the road. In my area, I'm one of the few. There's maybe 2 or 3 other people with an F450. So what does that mean? That means when you see this truck, especially with the letter, at this point with the logo, it's not, it doesn't really matter. At this point with the logo, it's a pretty unique truck. But even before the logo, you kind of have an identity of what you are. I mean, of who you are. If you drive like a normal F-150, then you tend to blend in with traffic. But with this truck being an F-450, the fender flares in the front stands out, and then you no longer blend in. Like, you stand out. I haven't really gotten a whole bunch of tickets or anything because of that, but you can't sneak up on nobody. I know with my lawn crew, I would sneak up on them here and there and park and see what they're doing, make sure they're really working, whatever. And that's no longer possible because of the F450. It's just an obvious, it sticks out like a sore thumb. So whether that's a pro or a con, sometimes it can be a con just because everybody knows you're you. It's like having like a bright green truck. Everyone's going to know that's you. Same thing with an F450 because it's rare, because of the way it looks. Makes you stand out a little bit. Number 2, the 19.5-inch tires are kind of a con at times. I've never really had a problem too much with how they drive. The main issue with these tires is you cannot rotate them to the rear. There's a polished side of the 19.5, so if I were to rotate these tires, then they wouldn't look right. I would have the unfinished side facing outward on the front and the rear, so you can't rotate these really without it looking weird, and you end up getting some weird wear on the front. Another issue with the 19.5s is they're full commercial, and it can throw off tire techs. You have to go to the right commercial tire place in order to get any service on these. You can't just go to like Discount Tire or Bell Tire or whatever unless they have commercial tire. Unless they're ready to do commercial tire. They actually mount on the rim differently than a standard tire. They use the other side. When you think about mounting a tire, it has one particular side where the rim actually comes on, the tire actually comes onto the rim and the tire goes off the rim. And if you go the wrong way, then the tire won't come off the wheel correctly. With the 19.5-inch commercial tires, they actually come off the wheel the other way. They actually come off with the stem pointing down if the face of the tire was laying on the ground. So a light duty truck tire actually mounts differently. And if you try to dismount this tire in the same way that you would dismount a normal pickup truck tire, you damage the wheel, be a huge mess, and you probably get the tire stuck between on and off. So with that being said, it takes special skill to be able to service a 19.5-inch tire. On top of that, it's hard to rotate them without dismounting the full tire. And with the special skill that's required, a lot of it's heavy duty semi-truck type of guys that can change the tires, and they're not used to changing really pretty nice tires. A lot of times they're just used to changing semi-truck tires, which means they're swinging hammers, they're hitting the bead, and you can't change this tire like that. A lot of those semi-truck commercial tires, they do this stuff by hand a lot of times, and you don't want to be doing that with these 19.5-inch aluminum wheels. You want to be mounting these real nice. So you have to be a good, not only do you need a tire man, you need a really good tire man that's going to take care, because most commercial tire operators are just swinging hammers and they'll probably chip your wheels. So getting service for the 19.5 inch tires is a little bit complicated. You got to go out of your way a little bit to find a good shop that can do it. Not everybody can do it. And in order to rotate the tires, you got to dismount them in order to rotate them. So a lot of people end up going just rotating them side to side in the front, and they end up getting weird wear. I've got a little bit of weird wear on mine, and I haven't really had a chance to rotate them. Maybe I'll dismount them. I do know how to do it, but I don't even have the tools to do it. It's just a matter of me spending like $300-400 on the tools in order to be able to mount and dismount the tires. Next thing I want to talk about is the gear ratio. So the 430 gear. So there's a lot of pros and cons with this gear. One of the cons with this particular 430 gear in the diesel engine is your reverse speed. Going backwards in this truck is not that fast. And the diesel engine being that lower revving engine, it is not able to really go backwards really fast. It's like you're going backwards. I figured it out when the freeway was closed and I had to back up an on-ramp, and it couldn't get any speed because the diesel engine doesn't rev that high. There's no gears, and the 430 gear is just too low with the low revving engine. With that, also taking off really fast, it's either like too much torque and the wheels are breaking loose, and it's just, with this gear, it's just not quick off of the line. So if you're thinking, oh, I'm going to get a 450, it's going to be a race truck, think again. It's not going to be fast. It's not really faster than the it's not faster than the 350s and the 250s, and it's not because the wheels are heavier. I mean, yeah, that's a factor. Having dual wheels being a little bit heavier is a factor, but the main factor is the 430 gear, the low end torque. I mean, with the 6.7 Power Stroke, you got 1,050 foot-pounds of torque. It's low end power, relatively low end power, and you kind of got to roll into the throttle a little bit if you're going to try to go fast. So 450s, they're not quick off the line. With the 430 gear, you could be in like 8th or 9th gear just driving around town, sometimes even 10th gear driving around town. And then once you get on the highway, if you're going about 80 miles an hour, you're going to be at about 24 to 2,500 RPM, which isn't that big a deal. The main thing that I've noticed is just a low end taking off. It's not undrivable or anything. That was kind of one of my fears. Like, is this 430 gear going to be just annoying to drive or ridiculous? Not really. It's not like it spins out crazy in the rain or snow or anything like that. It's just, if it happens if you're trying to take off. When you're doing if you end up racing somebody, which is, it's not that big a deal if you think about it. It's just not quick off the line like my 3.5 EcoBoost was, or like some of the 350 single rear wheel trucks. I think it's just the gearing is just too low in order to really get it off the line good with the amount of power that this engine makes. Even in 4-wheel drive, it's just too much power with the gear ratio. So as far as cons goes, I think that's pretty much it. I haven't had a problem with going to a dually really. Like I was thinking when I got it, the dually only sticks out less than as far as the mirror, so to me it hasn't really been an issue. The longer wheelbase, now not really an issue as well. Once you get used to how big this truck is no factor really. But I think that's pretty much it for the cons. I do know the insurance is a bit higher. The interest can be a bit higher. The interest rate once you get a 450, it's not a huge deal, but I do remember the interest rate being a little bit higher. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Is it worth it? Once you get the gross vehicle weight rating and towing, if you need all that stuff, then it is worth it. I do use the max gross vehicle weight rating, but that's actually another con though, because this truck's limited at 14,000 pounds, but the axles underneath it can hold a lot more. The tires underneath it, being full commercial tires, can hold a lot more than 14,000 pounds. And really everything above from the springs up is really very similar, if not the same, to an F350 dually. And it has the same gross vehicle weight rating as an F350 dually. But that being said, an F350 dually has a lot more payload. And I think for insurance purposes or whatever, titling and all that, A lot of places, I think, title this very similar to an F350 dually. Even though it says 450, it carries a lot of the ratings of an F350 on paper, even though it has the 19.5 inch tires, which is why a lot of times people will go over that gross vehicle weight rating, and it really won't be a factor for this truck. It really isn't like stressing the F450 out if you're going over those numbers a little bit. Not saying that you should do that, but there's like 1,000 pounds of added weight of a 450 over a 350, and it just comes out the payload, because a 450 pickup truck has a lower gross vehicle weight rating than a 450 cab and chassis, and there's actually a ton of differences between the pickup truck version of this truck and the cab and chassis version of this truck. How does it to me, it drives really good. I do know people that get into the truck say it does drive a little bit rougher than their 350s, but to me it drives good. The steering is really nice. I think they run a little bit less caster. It makes the steering wheel easier to turn. And when you're turning the wheel, it just keeps cranking and cranking and cranking and cranking, and it can make way sharper turns than other trucks. I know when I get into my 250 or my wife's F150, I find myself, without even noticing it or thinking about it, turning the wheel like how it would go in the 450, another extra turn and hitting the bump stop like, oh yeah, there's no more turning with this truck. But that's pretty much the cons. I do think the truck is worth it. The pros of getting this is obviously what we talked about in the start of the video: the bigger brakes, the beautiful rims, and the look of the truck. I guess you could say that's a pro and a con. For me, it's mostly a pro. Having such a good looking truck. It definitely sells a lot of work. Just being an F450, people see it and they want to sign up. But anyway, guys, that's it for today's video. My name is Sean. This is DS Trucks. See you in the next one. Over and out.